Welcome back to the Leadership Match. I'm Martin Rowinski, and today my guest is Terry Seitz, Chief Marketing and Operating Officer, partner at the Nuance Collective, and a board advisor with more than 20 years of experience driving brand transformation, digital growth, partnerships, revenue, margin, and measurable marketing impact. But what I love about Terry's story is where it all started. After college, he wanted to be an artist. He admired people like Jackson Pollock and saw creativity as a path. His parents basically said, good luck with that. So Terry took that creative passion and put it into advertising, brand strategy, marketing, and ultimately business leadership. That is what this show's about. Beyond the title, there is always a story that shaped the leader. Terry, welcome to the Leadership Match.
Martin, thank you. Thank you for having me. The amazing introduction. We probably should have stopped midway through it. I don't know if I could live up to the billing. And I know we spoke a couple of days ago, but your origin story, e.g., your story behind the story, is the one we should be telling today. Again, I don't know if your audience or listeners have heard it, but it is amazing. So,
thank you, Terry.
Footnote that.
I'm blushing. I appreciate that. So let's get into it. Before the titles, before Visa, before Nuance Collective, you wanted to be an artist. And I just told the story a little bit. What did that dream teach you about creativity and leadership?
I did. My passion for painting was really started in college. And when I graduated college, to your earlier point, I went to my parents and said, "Mom, Dad, I want to be an artist." And they said, "Yeah, you can absolutely be a starving artist in New York City, where I grew up." But what painting taught me about creativity and leadership is the following. One is a lot of the work starts with a brief. And that is a topic, a story, a point of view that you want to tell. Knowing where you want to go is a great starter. And I say that within the context of the painting that I do and that I've been doing for the last 20 years is what they call, from sort of like the New York school. It's abstract expressionist. It's exactly Jackson Pollock and Rothko and de Kooning and like all of these amazing. And there's some discussion about, did they have briefs or did they let sort of their consciousness take over and just paint? For me, having a brief, having a story, a specific story, a topic, a point of view to work on makes me more efficient and actually makes me more creative. It's the idea of sort of constraints unlock creativity. I think the second thing is, and this was a cautionary tale from university, was the professors tried to get you to sort of like paint within the boxes and sort of divide the canvas into, boxes of 12, and then you paint one. It was almost like paint by numbers. And I found that incredibly stifling from a creative perspective, and a leadership perspective. And the wonderful thing about the New York school of painting, the Pollocks, the de Koonings, the Rothkos of the world, is you got to sort of embrace mistakes. If you're not going to be painting in those squares, then mistakes are going to happen when you're applying paint to canvas. And you got to embrace that because it unlocks these exciting spaces and places and ideas to go that you wouldn't have got to if you were just finishing in sequential order sort of the boxes. And then I think the last piece is you got to give yourself agency to do a lot of nonlinear thinking, right? And that's the canvas is in front of you, and allowing the brushstrokes to take form or the action to take form is freeing because it leads you into new spaces that you wouldn't normally have gotten into. So the agency to really sort of do nonlinear thinking and let yourself sort of explore is fundamental, I think, to creativity and to leadership.
So that's funny. I never really thought about it that way, but the way you just described it, apparently I'm an artist since I specialize in branding for executives. Because that also all begins with a story. So yeah, I just thought I'd say that because you were just describing, I'm like, that's what I do.
Absolutely.
Funny.
Absolutely.
So when your parents pushed back on the artist path, how did you redirect that passion into advertising and marketing?
Yeah, I mean, essentially after college, they cut me off and they said, we've done all we can with you. Good luck. And I again wanted to be a painter in New York City, which is a hard thing, to do. And so I needed to practically pay the bills, but wanted to do something that utilized that part of the brain coupled with the other side of the brain, which was, I studied economics in college, and I had sort of had a business mind. And so the intersection, the concentric circle of creativity and business led me to advertising. Now, again, I'm dating myself, but 20 some odd years ago, we were viewed, or I would view the industry as populated with a bunch of commercial artists. And that is the people that comprised the agency world that lived on marketing teams were writers and philosophers and photographers and animators and producers and actors and actresses. And everyone had sort of a creative, or many people had a sort of a creative bent, but they too had to pay the bills. And so that's why they were sort of in advertising. But back then, it was a different world where you hearken to the line of John Wanamaker going, I'm wasting 50% of my budget and I just don't know, or 50% of my advertising and I just don't know which. And that was true because back then the accountability, the structure, the discipline of marketing and advertising was different. Like we just weren't held accountable for our actions to the degree that we are now. It's not that people weren't evaluating and trying to measure marketing, but there was less correlation and causation, tools, methodologies, and expectations back then. Fast forward 20 years on. The discipline, my journey has arced and pivoted to one of what I would call sort of a mad scientist. And it's all of those things. It's trying to rectify the John Wanamaker 50% of my advertising is wasted, I just don't know what or where, to we are much more structured. There's a discipline, there's a almost a scientific approach to how we do advertising and marketing that is very good, and it more aligns to this notion of trying to get better at probabilistic outcomes, such that we are generating bottom line business outcomes for the business, and we can, if not prove it, be more highly correlated to it. And I think we're going to get into some of this a little bit later, but that's been one of the footfalls in advertising and marketing is huge investment, right? OpEx, and everyone now going, we can measure everything under the sun. How are you generating enterprise value for the business? And it's incumbent upon us in the vertical and in the discipline to sort of go figure that out. But being a mad scientist is about a systematic approach to go do that, right? So you establish hypotheses. You then test your way in or out of those hypotheses. You then communicate your findings. You optimize, and then you test again to sort of establish patterns, right? We're all in sort of like the search for, in science, right? The search for truth, which sounds very esoteric and sort of amorphous, but the truth in marketing is about driving enterprise value. And if we can't do that, then I don't know why we're in the business. And that goes back to this notion of we're no longer a bunch of like commercial artists who like to make TV ads and move pixels around. It's about what am I doing with these things that's actually going to generate a return on the business.
Yeah. And you've also had worked on major brands and global partnerships, which include Visa, NFL, FIFA, hey, go World Cup, and the Olympics. What separates creative marketing from marketing that actually drives business? If there was like one point you can point to.
Yeah, I think, and it's going to sound strange, but it's about adopting an investment philosophy. And that is the notion of compound returns. And you're going, what the hell does that have to do with marketing? Well, in today's world, being consistently and constantly in market in a simplified way where you are creating memories and associations in people's minds and then letting that work exist out in the ether is ultimately what drives enterprise value creation. The counter is too often, particularly in this world where we are all about attention and the hysteria and the hyperbole around the next shiny, glossy thing or person, is that everyone is fixated on one-offs and sort of stunts to generate attention. But attention in and of itself is sort of a false god. It's fleeting, it's vacuous. It can't be tied to this notion of driving enterprise value creation. It's important, but it is but sort of the first almost precursor step to all of these things. So being constantly and consistently in market in a simplified way where you, Martin, can make an association or a memory, we call it a heuristic, is so critically important. And the reason why that is, and this is why it's so crazy that I'm in the business that I'm in, is that when we buy toothpaste, when we buy mayonnaise, when we buy a car, when we buy a flat screen TV, most of us have a predetermined set of brands or products that we're already considering. Like it's ingrained. And so you got to do the upfront work to try and even get into what is often a predetermined and defined consideration set. So you better be simple, but you better be constant and you better be consistent. You know, there's this theory that comes out of Europe from a guy named John Dawes in the Ehrenberg Institute. And he talks about the 95-5 thesis. And that is 95% of a potential buying segment of a car, of a toothpaste, mayonnaise, etc., isn't actually in the market to buy that product or brand or service at any given time. It's only 5%. Now, that doesn't mean we should ignore the 95% because it's all about priming the pump, top funnel awareness consideration. But it's just crucially important that driving business results isn't just about converting those down funnel already in the consideration set, because that is a finite number of people. You got to think about it longitudinally and long term.
Makes a lot of sense. So let me get into a little bit of leadership because interesting enough, you obviously were going to want to be a painter. You transformed that passion into advertising, marketing, creativity, which you stayed kind of course, but now you're at the intersection of marketing and operations and you're a partner. So what did that passion for art teach you that made you a stronger operator -- partner?
I think first and foremost, and you referenced it when I was talking about being a painter and you were talking about what you do for a living, is first and foremost, it's about storytelling. Right? We as human beings learn and communicate through stories and have for thousands of years. It hasn't changed, right? And so storytelling is seminal to marketing, and importantly, it's seminal to how you run the operations and are a leader at the organization. I think the second thing that marketing sort of also teaches you is this notion of frequency. I'm going to get academic for like 10 seconds, but there is, from a marketing investment perspective, two notions. One is called reach, and how many people do you reach with an advertising message, and then frequency. How many times does somebody see it? The theory is you gotta reach somebody 6 times before they change their perception of a brand or product, or they act, they buy something, they transact. Again, general guideline. But frequency is, I think, really important in operations and how often we tell stories. In that you gotta tell somebody you're gonna tell them something, tell them, and then tell them what you just told them. We often, and I fall prey to this as well, think that I've sent out an email, I've sent out a Slack, we were on a Zoom call, and therefore somebody knows exactly what I need or expect out of them. And it's got to be reinforced multiple times from a frequency perspective. Martin, I know you have kids, I have kids, and it's the same, like, how many times do you tell them to brush their teeth or to put on socks or, don't forget their keys or like whatever it is, right? Frequency. So storytelling, frequency. And then the last thing, and it's particular to where the learning is particular to advertising, which is an incredibly low margin business to be in, is that the devil is absolutely in the numbers. Right? Time is money. And so you either optimize it or you are wasting it. And so as as we try and build the business at the Nuance Collective, and I run BizDev and the operations and a lot of the bookkeeping, we are hawkish about how much time people spend not only on existing business, to protect margin, but also in the time value of money and how much we invest in new business and the potential return on that. So storytelling, frequency, and the devil being in the numbers is just, we live and die by that stuff.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, let's get into the match. What leadership lesson from your journey would you match with every leader listening? Pick one.
Perspective. And that is perspective sort of gleaned through time, right? If we think about perspective, well, let me take a step back. If we think about the world we live in, there's so much hysteria and hyperbole around everything that we consume, particularly from social media, that it's really hard to separate fact from fiction, bias from not, our desire for understanding and our desire to act. And it's almost like we've gotten too fast in how we are supposed to live life. Perspective brings all of that stuff down, right? It's this tonic of taking emotion and not making it too high or too low. It's about the ability to use time to give us lessons about the right and the wrong and where to go and where not to go. It gives you a different point of view that you maybe wouldn't have had, and you get that perspective from others, and you get that perspective from yourself. So for me, perspective and this sort of slowing down of time to get different points of view and to not make everything so real time is, I think, just, and by the way, I say this, and it's hard to do given the environment that we all live in, but is just so critically important. It's the yin to the world that we live in, which is the yang.
Yeah. And now to wrap it up, the action.
Yeah.
What is one action leaders can take this week to connect creativity, strategy, and measurable growth?
It's a fun exercise. Go to the LLMs, right? Go to Gemini, go to Claude, go to Chat, right? Choose your model and do two things. Plug in your company, your brand, the product that you sell, the product that you lead, and see what those models play back about your brand. You will be surprised. Okay? That's one thing. Second thing, on a personal level, do it for yourself. And you will be surprised. No, because, right, I know we didn't really dive into sort of the perils and the promise and the potential of AI, but stating the incredibly obvious point of it's not only here to stay, but it is transforming, nearly every facet of our business and personal lives. Knowing what the models and the machines play back about your business and about you is incredibly important for two reasons. One is that's how people are searching for your product and brand increasingly, right? It's either a supplement and or it's replacing things like Google search. That's like a fact. And then the second thing is thinking about sort of movies like Total Recall in the future, and the notion that the machines are increasingly cutting us out as the middlemen, women in purchases, right? Like the machines are going to talk to each other, make purchases and make decisions based on our behalf and our preferences, mind you. But that then requires a level of understanding and a level of curation, to go back to this notion of being an artist, about who you are as a person and then who you are as a company and brand. So the action is, if you haven't done it, it'll be an eye-opening, illuminating experience to see what the machines are playing back to us.
It is a fun experience. Terry, I really appreciate this conversation. Your story is a great reminder that creativity is not something leaders have to leave behind. When it is paired with discipline, measurement, and the right team, creativity can become a real business advantage. And for everyone listening, here is the takeaway. Do not separate passion from performance. The best leaders find a way to bring both to the table. Leadership is built one conversation, one connection, and one action at a time. Thanks for listening to the Leadership Match. I'm your host, Martin Rowinski, and I'll see you in the next match. Thanks, Terry.
Thanks, Martin.